This is Ambition Today. Today we are joined by Benjamin Chong. He is the founder and investor at Right Click Capital. This is Ambition Today.
These are the entrepreneurs, creators, investors, and builders who ambitiously change to the world. Explore the hardships and heroisms of everyday life while we reveal the key moments to leave behind a lasting legacy. This is Ambition Today with Kevin Siskar.
What's up, world? I am Kevin Siskar, and you are listening to Ambition Today. The Ambition List is now live and up on our website, siskar.co. After every episode, we've been asking each guest what is the single greatest piece of advice you've received in your life. And tell us it. Tell us how you learned it. We've got some amazing answers to that question, and you can join now at siskar.co/A-list to hear all those answers. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast in your favorite app, Apple, Spotify, Google, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Breaker. You get the point. Really, wherever you listen to your podcasts, make sure you subscribe. Leave us a review. We appreciate that as well. In case you missed it, last episode we talked to our first billionaire on the podcast, Michael Loeb. He is the founder and CEO of Loeb.nyc, a private venture investor and startup incubator here in New York. But today, I am really excited. We have my good friend from Down Under, Benjamin Chong. He is the founder and investor at Right Click Capital. He's also my peer as the director of Founder Institute Australia, and also just one of the funnest and best people to be around. So Ben, welcome to Ambition Today.
Thank you very much for having me, Kevin. I'm glad to be talking to you.
Nice. Where are you today? I am here in New York City in the financial district. Where are you at?
I'm at home in beautiful Sydney, where I'm just looking outside my window and am very close to the water here. And we're blessed in Sydney to have wonderful beaches or wonderful waterways, but more than that, great founders who are trying wonderful things in building technology companies that are hopefully going to the globe.
Nice. And what just to humor me, because it's the middle of winter here, what is the weather there?
Oh, it's beautiful here. It's today it's going to be a balmy 85 degrees. So I'll certainly be wearing my shorts and my flip-flops as the day proceeds.
Nice.
Particularly when I go down to the beach.
Nice. Awesome. Well, let's jump into it. So we start with everyone at the beginning. Tell us a bit about how you grew up. You know, I don't know. Did you grow up in Australia? If so, tell us about life down under. And, you know, maybe there's some lessons from your childhood or you could tell us, when were you first exposed to entrepreneurship when you were young?
Sure. Look, I was really fortunate to be born in Sydney and to have grown up here. So as a kid, I remember the early days of going to the beach during the summer and, of course, watching that game that many people from Commonwealth countries are familiar with, such as cricket, but not so many people from the United States. So watching cricket as a kid in our summer months and then in the winter months going to football games with the family. Now, growing up as a child, I, like many young people, looked up to the folks who were firemen or fire people or policemen, and of course I wanted to grow up to be one of them. But it was at high school I was exposed to a program called Young Achievement. In America, it's called Junior Achievement. And this is a program that helps folks who are in high school get exposed to business. So over a 6-month period, you get together with other students, some from your own school, some from neighbouring schools, and you have this opportunity to build a company. You issue shares or stock to some of your family and friends for a couple of dollars.
How old are you at this point?
I would have been maybe 14, 15.
Amazing.
And what's pretty cool. And what you then do is you start this little business, and then you hope to turn a profit. And I remember, it's funny, these little things that you remember. After the 6-month program, and we had a eclectic group of people that I was working with, we sold jewelry earrings and necklaces. I wasn't really allowed to wear the earrings or the necklaces to school, but the girls in the program were great advocates of this. We sold these earrings and these necklaces and bracelets at some of the markets and to other friends. And woe and behold, at the end of the program, we returned a profit. I think the profit was something like 156% that we returned to our investors.
Wow.
Of course, they were very happy. But I think more than that, we were thrilled at this idea that something as students we were able to create could return a profit. Of course, we paid ourselves very little wages, but all the same, it whetted my appetite to get into business, and that is to find problems, to find things that people desire, and then hopefully to satisfy those problems with solutions or products in this case. And that really was the beginning. And since that time, I have been in the really fortunate position to have started, built, bought and sold a number of businesses over the years.
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. And it just goes to show the importance of that type of education in younger generations, and especially at that high school age. Really important, and not enough people get exposed to it, and it's so valuable in the years going forward. Just the fact that you issued shares and you understood all the terminology and all that, that's a massive advantage. So that's great. So coming next, I believe you head off to the University of New South Wales for a degree,
that's right,
for a degree in commerce. Tell us a little about your time at university and what you studied and what comes next in the journey.
So after school, I had choices. I had choices about what I could or should do, and one of those choices was where I would study. And of course, as a young person, you're really not sure what to do. It's your first time doing these things, but I was very fortunate. And this is going to lead into, I think, my reflection for your big question, and that is I spoke with a number of mentors at the time. And, of course, these were informal mentors. These are people that I'd come to know and respect. They were older, they had experience. And I spoke with a number of people, and the conclusion that I drew after speaking with them was to go and do a commerce degree. And I was really fortunate to get into the University of New South Wales, where in this program I was able to have a major in information systems. So there was this wonderful combination of learning about business, learning about economics and finance and all those things, but then I was able to take a number of subjects around information technology, information systems, and that got me exposed, and I was hooked. This is the time when we were in the middle of the web 1.0 or .com, and it was a time where there was so much excitement. You would go to the news agency or the corner store and get these magazines of Wired or Business 2.0. So you'd get these magazines which would have come from the US, and you'd see these pictures of Jerry Yang and David Filo from Yahoo, and you'd be inspired by this, right? Because they started their business, Yahoo, in the early 90s, and you'd have a look at what they'd been doing and reading this in print, and then you'd learn further about some of the exciting things with AOL, and of course that giant merger with Time Warner, and I was hooked.
So when I went to university, it was a time where you needed to get approval from the dean to get an email address. Imagine that. These days, whenever you start a new job, whenever you go to a new university or college or school, you get an email address off the bat. I needed to get special approval. And, of course, it was one of those ghastly email addresses with my student number and all sorts of prefixes ahead of the university domain name. But that was a time where people were so excited about the possibility of what might happen or the impact of this technology. And there was so much, I guess, ambition and this idea that the internet would change our world. Of course, in hindsight, it has changed our world, but maybe in ways that we weren't able to imagine back then. So while at university, I caught up with some friends and we were thinking, how do we take advantage of this trend? How do we take advantage of the trend of more people being online, more people shopping potentially online? And of course, in the mid-90s, it was the time where there were many people who were getting onto mobile phones, cell phones. So we decided to combine the two. Then we combined the cell phone usage along with internet usage and e-commerce and sell mobile phones online. And that's what we did. That was the first business, trying to sell all of these big Nokias and Motorola's and NEC phones online.
Nice. That's awesome. So is that iMega? What was that business called?
That business was called Mobile Stock. And what we had at the time was ambition to create a brand that could be a stop for other things. And that's why we came up with the name Mobile Stop. We then thought we might have Bike Stop, we might have Pet Stop, we might have any. And we spent a lot of time on the Mobile Stop itself because there was so much opportunity to grow this into one of the larger online retailers in Australia. And really fortunate at the time, we did grow it to be the largest online retailer for mobile phones in Australia. And we were running a mobile phone store, say, on behalf of Vodafone, which is one of the big telcos here. We also had access to the other telco networks like Optus, and we were able to offer choice. That was our big thing, wanting to offer choice to our consumers so they could have a choice of the carrier that they would be able to access, as well as choice with the mobile phones. And we wanted to be really convenient by delivering things to customers within 24 hours. And for us at the time, that was a big thing, being able to get an order by 2 o'clock and ensuring that it was on a truck being couriered to the customer anywhere in Australia.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. That sounds like a great journey. So I want to take it back from university, keep it going from there. So I know you spent some time with PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, and others. But then in 2003, you started a company, iMega. What was that company? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
So one of the things that I learned through Mobile Stop is that you need to have a business that has scale. Scale is very important. And I'd suggest that back in those 90s, the amount of activity in e-commerce is a far cry from the amount of activity that occurs today in e-commerce. And I even suspect today it's a drop in the ocean as to what it will be in years to come. The second thing I think that I learned through the Mobile Stop journey is that relationships in business are critical. It takes time to build relationships, but with relationships, wonderful things. We had to convince the carriers at the time to be able to trust us, to represent them, to represent their products, and to allow us to sell their products online, when previously all they knew was these offline bricks and mortar stores. So being able to engender their trust and then being able to use that trust for commercial benefit was a big lesson for me. And then the third lesson is to do with timing. And sometimes when you have your nose to the grindstone, it's difficult to work out where you are within the cycle. But timing is really important. We were a little slow in trying to raise money for the mobile stock business. We had secured a chunk of commitments for about half of our round, and we went into early 2000 trying to raise more money. And you'll remember what occurred in March 2000, and that was when the burst of the first dot-com bubble occurred, and many people lost their shirts there. And similarly, we were not able to fully raise that round of capital that we needed to propel our business forward. So we learned that scale is important, that relationships are important, and that timing is important. And it's those three lessons that I've tried to bear, along with my business partners, into businesses that we've since started. So in 2002, 2003, we did start this business, which eventually became iMega. And what we built was a network of websites in the United States. Why the United States? Because of the scale. So many more people in Australia. We wanted to have a business that could service a much larger population.
Okay.
And over time, we were able to build to a large database of Americans that we were able to serve advertising and offers to. And this led us to working on behalf of the likes of Time Warner, Kraft Foods and Disney, where we were able to share subscriptions, products that these companies were wanting to offer to consumers. So because we had that scale, we were able to build these relationships with the consumers. And then on the timing side, we grew that business, and it was eventually acquired by a listed marketing services group in 2006. And this company that took us over wanted to grow their presence in the United States. And because we were growing rapidly and had feet on the ground in the US, they were very eager to acquire us. So for me, that was a really fun ride, because we built this business. We were able to understand the needs of our customers at the time and create a product that was really helpful for them.
Well, that's awesome. And it's really interesting to always get the perspective too of the other side of the world, right? And it's interesting how you guys kind of viewed the U.S. at that time. I actually want to ask you a little bit later about, the startup scene overall in Australia, but we'll get to that after we get through your journey here. So iMega sounds great. You then move on to Jet Abroad, online agility. And, I sort of like to think of this as like the movie montage part of people's lives. But then in 2011, you become a director of the Founder Institute. You've been one of the directors for the Founder Institute since the very beginning. And so I wanted to ask you, over all those 8 years working with all those founders, and having been one yourself a few times, what have you learned from the founders? One, and what do you think is the most important thing that you teach the founders in return? What has surprised you that they've taught you?
I think one of the most surprising things is, and this is something that I know Adeo, who is the CEO of the Founder Institute, along with other directors, we talk about this, and this is the ability. I've learned to listen better. I've learned to listen better and to ask more questions and to try to set aside my personal prejudices when assessing things in my business life. In fact, in life in general. And that has been a huge learning for me. So often you and I approach these situations with fixed assumptions, and being able to ask the clarifying questions and to view things from a different perspective, I think is really important. I know that one of the big things that Adeo talks about is having fluid intelligence and mental acuity, and that is, for me, being able to change thinking as the rules of the game change. So, of course, there are some things which are eternal. Gravity seems to be pretty eternal, but there are other things, whether it is around the customer experience or whether it is around a business model, where sometimes you can turn it on its head. And if you don't have that mental acuity and you don't have that openness to different ways of thinking, then you can become blindsided. And we've seen this with companies who have been disrupted by disruptive companies.
Yeah. One of the things I've noticed too is there seems, being a teacher, taking the other, there's two sides to the mentor-mentee relationship, right? But I found that there can be an immense amount of clarity provided to you from helping other people. And that's the other thing that I've been surprised by is just how much more on top of my own game I am, because I'm helping other people, and that's causing me to think of things in a way that I wouldn't normally do.
Yeah, I agree. And my encouragement to founders is, whilst you do have a busy life, whether you're trying to get product market fit, or whether you're trying to scale, or whether you're trying to hire, or whether you're trying to raise money for your business, if you are able to set some time aside to be a mentor, to be a bouncing board, to mentee someone who's going through some earlier stages, I think you can be extremely beneficial to them. So it's an act of service. But as you said, I think there is also great benefits to mentors being exposed to these different ways of thinking, but also having time as a mentor to train your efforts on someone else's business. I think it helps broaden your exposure to different businesses and different types of people.
Yeah, for sure. So taking it to the flip side of that question, what do founders need to be? What do you want to teach the founders going in the other direction? What do founders need to be thinking about? What do they need to be doing in 2019 to be successful?
Yeah, I think in 2019, to be successful, there are a combination of activities founders should bear in mind. First of all, it is still having a passion and a desire to propel their current business forward, and that can be through a number of ways. I think it is, secondly, getting feedback from trusted mentors, particularly the mentors that make you feel uncomfortable. It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
We tend to, well, I certainly tend to learn the most from times when I feel uncomfortable. And not necessarily uncomfortable because I'm totally out of control, but it may be this uncomfortableness because someone's questioning some of the long-held assumptions I've had, or maybe they're exposing something that I know needs to be exposed but have been procrastinating around that subject. And then I think the third thing that founders need to do is to keep asking the question, what do I need to do with my product to continue to be successful in the future? Because you may have had success in the past, and that's wonderful, that's fantastic, high fun, but what got you here may not get you there. So this idea that you can simply keep making the sausage the same way you made the sausage last year, well, that may not necessarily be the case in the light of competition. It may not be the case in the light of new technology. I was just yesterday at a board meeting with one of our portfolio companies, and our CTO there was telling us about some new initiatives that he's working on that can take better advantage of this elastic cloud computing, the ability to turn up and turn down the amount of computing resources that you consume, and therefore you can make your expenses, your cost of hosting, a little more variable with the demand that you get. Now, in principle, that sounds fantastic, and this elastic computing has been around for some years. But as you get into the detail, there are often these quirks or these little areas that are complex that need to be worked through. And as we had a bit of exposure to that yesterday, I really appreciated some of the things that his team needs to stay on top of. And if they kept themselves in a bubble, they would not be exposed to some of these new developments to not only improve performance but reduce cost. And that's why you can't simply rest on your laurels. You've got to make sure that you're aware of new developments once they're out there, and then assess whether you need to incorporate those new developments or the response to those new developments in your business planning for this year.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I love that. We're going to take a quick break. We're here with Benjamin Chong, and right after the break, we're going to learn more about Right Click Capital, his fund. We will be right back with more.
This is Ambition Today.
Thank you for listening to this amazing episode of Ambition Today with Benjamin Chong. Remember to join the A-List back channel to go after this episode to hear the single greatest piece of advice Ben has ever received. The price is super founder friendly, starting at only $3. Go to sysguard.co/A-List to join now and start listening. Ambition Today is also happy to partner with WeWork, a co-working space that lets you do what you love. WeWork has offices in over 140 locations worldwide, and many of our own portfolio companies have used WeWork for their early stage startups. You can work with everything from one person to full teams. Check out sysguard.co/WeWork to learn more. And now back to this excellent episode of Ambition Today.
Visit Ambition Today online at sysguard.co and follow the show on social media at Ambition Today.
Welcome back. We are here with Benjamin Chong, and we were talking about his journey through entrepreneurship thus far. Ben, I want to take it full circle now to what you're doing in 2019, what you're doing today. Tell us a little bit about Right Click Capital and what it is you're doing now.
So I'm a partner, Kevin, at Right Click Capital, which is an early stage venture capital firm that likes to back ambitious founders from Australia, New Zealand and Southeast Asia. So leaning on the experience of my other partners, so I've got two other partners in the Right Click Capital venture firm, and leaning on their experience who, like me, have been through this process of starting and building technology companies, we love to do the same. And therefore, we're investing in seed stage, or some might call the pre-seed stage businesses, so really early stage, right into Series A and some Series B businesses in the region. And what we love doing with the companies that we get involved in is helping them grow. Quite often it's difficult to know, how do you make your first set of hires? How do you bring on your chief revenue officer? How do you expand into a new market? How do you get that enterprise customer on board? These are the types of questions and challenges that we love helping the founders that we invest in go through and hopefully succeed.
Well, that's awesome. To bring the bridge the gap here, I want to talk a little about what was it like making that switch from founder to investor. You have some people who are, obviously to each their own, and they're typically biased towards their own background, but there's this argument in venture capital whether an investor should have a background as an operator, whether or not that gets old and out of date, or they should just be this analytical spreadsheet machine that can, pick out data points. I'm obviously biased towards the founder investor combo, but I would love to hear your journey from making that switch from founder investor and what you think about that.
I think that's a good question. For me, the way that I made this switch from being a founder was initially by making some investments into businesses of people I knew. Some were friends, others were friends of friends or people that I knew in industry. And I was fortunate pretty early on, from about 2003, to start making some very modest investments in some of these businesses. So I learned while I was operating businesses and making some small investments, what worked and what didn't work. And over time, I think I was fortunate to build a little portfolio there and build an understanding and a framework, at least in my mind, of what I liked and what I did not like about certain businesses. I think the big thing and the big switch for me from being an operator to being an investor is knowing my limitations. When you are operating a business, you ought to be obsessed about it. You ought to be obsessed about your customers, about your customer service, about your product, about your team, about growth, all of those things. But as an investor, particularly as we continue to grow our portfolio of investments, we need to work out the best ways that we can help our individual portfolio companies, but also to ensure that we are doing so in a sustainable way. So this means that there are some months where I'll spend more time assisting certain companies, and then in other months I am spending more time assisting a different set of companies. And some of these companies will be in our portfolio. A lot of them are in our portfolio. Other times they're companies that I've come to know in the community or through contacts that I want to help because I think it's a good thing to be able to help these companies, whether it's through the Founder Institute or elsewhere, to provide feedback and counsel to founders. Awesome.
So the other thing I wanted to ask about is what are your thoughts on founder mental health? That's something that keeps kind of coming up in the zeitgeist this year. Tell me your thoughts on that and how founders should be thinking about it and what they can do to make sure they maintain a healthy mental state.
Yeah, that's a great question. I spent a bit of time last year with some of the folks at KPMG who have been very interested in this topic and what the linkage is between founder mental health as well as the performance, long-term performance of their business. And what they found is that there is a connection. There is a connection between the physical and the mental health of founders and the performance of businesses in the long term. So I think while I said previously that founders should have a healthy level of obsession about their business, I think the operative word there is healthy, and that is it is important for founders to take time to smell the roses, to ensure that they're looking after themselves. And we're all different. Some people can work for 7 days straight, 10 days straight, and then need to take a little bit of time off. Others prefer to do the 5 days and the 2-day weekend. So I'm not here to prescribe what is good for everyone, but what I'll say is that it's important, in my view, to good friendships or supporters of loved ones who are not in the business, who are outside of the business, who can look after you. Because sometimes when we're in the business, we can get all consumed by it, and we may not know or recognise that we're suddenly becoming short, or we're becoming depressed, or we're not looking after how we're eating. So I think ensuring that your loved ones, whether it's friends or family, are aware of how you are and looking after you, and hopefully you're doing the same, I think is very important. I think the other thing also is this idea of taking breaks. I had this wonderful conversation last year, Kevin, with an athlete. And the athlete was saying to me, when you watch people at the Olympic Games or at these World Championships, whether it's in tennis or swimming or whether it's in athletics, running, yes, we see these gold medal winning performances, and it's such a wonderful thing to watch. But they're not running from 0 to 100 at that breakneck speed every day of the week. In order for a Usain Bolt to post those wonderful times, he's doing a lot of other training, and he's not running at that intense pace every single day. And for me, that was a wake-up call. It was a bit of a conscience pricking moment where I thought, I think there's some truth to that, and that if we, particularly those of us who are founders, and we get this rush of closing a deal, we get a rush when we're pushing out a new release, we get a rush when the package of the new product gets sent or delivered. That's great, because we thrive on some of that adrenaline, but we've got to be careful that we're not at the red line the whole time.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analogy, and I really like how you worded that. That's great. I'm gonna use that. Well, so last question for you, Ben. I want to ask you, because you're someone who spans both Silicon Valley and Australia. We were caught up in New York a few weeks ago, and I showed you the ways of the dollar slice in Midtown.
You were a very good guide, I must say, a very hospitable guy.
So tell me just real quick for those listening, what is startup life like in Australia, on the other side of the planet for us?
Look, apart from the beaches and the wonderful weather here, I think what I love about Sydney and Australia is the increasing numbers of folks who are getting involved in the startup ecosystem. So it's expanding, it's growing. I think over the last few years there has been a shift in mindset for the better, where people are now talking about building businesses that are going global, that sure, they may address some of the concerns and the desires of local users, but I'm hearing a lot more of founders wanting to expand globally, which I think is a great thing, and that's the power of the technology that we are using today. And I think the other thing that has been really wonderful has been a number of the supporters in the community that have sprung up, whether it's the co-working spaces, there's a lot of WeWorks here, whether it is incubators or the accelerators, or whether it is corporates who are wanting to incorporate innovation and disruptive thinking and businesses in their main businesses. That's been very exciting to see.
Well, that's awesome. And I need to make the trip over there. Come check it out. Well, Ben, this has been a great episode. For everyone listening, the show notes, which include everything from this episode, are up on our website, syscar.co. Share this episode with a friend. Leave us a review. We truly appreciate it. Ben, we were going to take this over to the back channel. Hear your best advice. Thank you for, I know it's late in New York here and it's early in Australia there, so thank you for waking up early on a Saturday. I love the hustle. Where can people go find out more about you, or is there anything else they should be checking out?
Yes, if you'd like to learn more, please check out rightclickcapital.com. Otherwise, I'm on Twitter at Benjamin Chong.
Nice. Awesome. Well, let's take this over to the back channel. Everyone else, stay curious, and we will see you on the next episode of Ambition Today.
See you soon.
Thanks for listening to Ambition Today. Be sure to visit syscar.co to get all the information from this episode and more great content. Until next time, stay curious, everyone.